City of Port Washington's Common Council meeting, Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Roll call, all alderpersons are present. Please join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I've got a lot of things. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Alderman Benning, seconded by, Alderman Pleitner. I was going to say Alderman John. Alderman Pleitner, any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Under mayor's business tonight, I just have one simple thing, which is to thank the council for participating in activity, as well as the city's leadership team for participating and having a conversation about the future state of the city of Port Washington, tackling all the issues, everything from bluff retention to 5-year technology plan, north and south side infrastructural improvements and development, library, et cetera, et cetera. Just want to thank the council for participating in that and helping our staff as we continue to invest in and renew our strategic plan. With that, we have no officer reports, and I'll move into public comments.
Mayor Ted, excuse me.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Sigwart.
I would like to compliment you on your speech down on Memorial Day.
Oh.
It was the first time that I actually listened to the whole thing. And the people in the audience were nodding, yes, it's a good idea when you see a veteran, don't just say thanks for your service, because they'll say you're welcome. Say, did you do something special in your military years? Give me a story.
Yeah.
It works, Ted, just so you know, but thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, that then takes us into public comments and appearances. If you have a public comment tonight, you please remember to state your name and address, as well as remember that you have 3 minutes to do so. Are there any public comments or appearances this evening? Any public comments or appearances? All right, any public comments or appearances? Yes, Mr. Terry.
Since nobody, I just would like to say that I miss seeing Merton Liptow sitting in the back of these meetings. He passed away recently, and I think he was a real pillar of the community the whole time that I lived here.
Yes, thank you for doing that. I was going to adjourn in his honor tonight, so I appreciate that. And Mr. Benning, I know you were there, so thank you for helping out. Okay, seeing no public comments and appearances, we're going to move into 7A1, consideration and possible action on an agreement with C.D. Smith performing as the construction manager as the constructor for the proposed, I read ahead there. Consideration and possible action on authorizing Bray Architects to proceed with final design on the public safety building. The issue is, should the council authorize Bray to proceed with phase 2, the design phase services, per the attached executed agreement? And the staff recommendation is they recommend the council authorize Bray Architects to proceed with phase 2 design services per the attached executed agreement. That was approved by the Common Council, and I'm going to start with Melissa.
Thank you. So we've been meeting internally and with Bray, the owner's rep and construction group, about the contracts, and GGF has been asking questions, and we've had a lot of back and forth. The city attorney also spent a good amount of time over the last few weeks going through these documents as well. We did meet at GGF, and I believe the recommendation is to move forward after discussion of how the fees work, what percentage is are the fees based on, or is it based on like the total project, which it's not. And they've gone through that quite thoroughly. So I just wanted to share that before. We do have the owner's rep here, if you wish to speak, have him speak, and or the city attorney on further items.
Excellent, thank you. Rob?
Oh, thank you, and thanks, Melissa. Yes, great introduction. We do have with us Rick Miller, who's our owner's representative, and Paul Bestial and Chris Egger from Bray are in person, and we have Matt Wolfert on the phone if there are any questions. But again, it is the Bray agreement that has been executed and approved by our city attorney and reviewed by our owner's rep. Is 5.7% of total of construction costs, which they designed. So it does not include soft costs that they have no part of, including like land acquisition, access rights, things like that. So so it's based right now on a construction cost estimate of $28,875,000. That, along with their due diligence costs, would bring the fee, again, this is an estimate because it's based on a percentage of actual construction costs, which we discussed downstairs, could be locked in to a hard number, but as Rick, I would go along with what Rick Miller stated, which is I would prefer to stick with the 5.7%, and then that way we can realize some cost savings. Also, as we go into design, I think at our first kickoff meeting, we will be talking about value engineering items and discussing things like the training tower and determining early whether or not these are going to be in or out of the agreement, so, or in and out of construction. But as far as the contract goes, we are looking for authorization to proceed with Phase 2, full design services of the public safety building.
Excellent. Alderman Pleitner, anything from committee or?
No, I think the main thrust of the conversation was having discussions about what those fees look like, making sure that we're not locked into a higher fee than we would necessarily want to pay. Rob did touch on it a little bit, but again, discussions around value engineering and making sure that this body is, continually updated about those discussions, right? Those of us that aren't on that working group that aren't in those discussions would like to know about the value engineering that's going on. So I know we'll be having those updates, but if it's from a staff level, it's from a architectural or construction or from MC, that we would be having those frequent updates about what's coming up, what's coming down, changes, pluses or minuses to the plan.
Excellent. Alderman Benning?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Jonathan had said. And I think the agreement that we entered into our last meeting with Rick Miller for our owner's rep has already paid value. We had a really good discussion, and he was answering a lot of the questions. He's gone through both of these agreements we're going to look at tonight and gave us some valuable feedback on them. So we're going forwards positively.
Any other questions, comments on that? Otherwise, is there someone willing to make a motion?
If not, I'll make a motion that we move forwards with Phase 2. Sorry.
There's a motion for Phase 2. Is there a second?
I'll take the second.
All right. Alderman Terry?
This is not to the motion. It's
Correct,
It's
and
just
I
a question.
will
about-
allow.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Just a question about the process. So if we okay this, is there ever at any point, a point where we say, this has just gotten to be too much, we want to stop?
Yes.
Okay?
However,
It's not real likely.
yes, and if we do get to that point, we have to be hyper cognizant of the funds that we had spent. So I think the charge moving forward with both the architect, the construction management, and our owner's rep is to ensure that that cost comes down and it's a little more digestible, as well as on point for our expectations.
Thank you.
One last
Alderman
discussion
Pointer?
piece for me is around the land purchase and the option to purchase from the county. As long as we're doing a lot of these things concurrently, we've talked about this. So as long as we have line of sight to when the land would finally become possession of the city, as well as the right of way and the easements, it'd be nice.
Awesome. And that'll be mapped out as we're moving forward. Any other questions or concerns? Mr. Sigwart?
Are we going to have a discussion about the tax impact of this tonight, Melissa, or are we not?
No, we can't have a discussion about that until we actually get better numbers, and that will help, our exercise downstairs will help us create a budget. But we would need Carol Worth to come back and do projections, because we need to know what we're gonna borrow for all these other projects over the next several years.
Mr. Sigwart, just to clarify, your question is, at what point will we be able to say, here is the impact on mill rate, levy first, and then mill rate if the project comes in at X amount of dollars?
Correct.
Those forecasts would be, once there's a final dollar amount, then that's easier to predict.
Or it may come in that it's too much money and we won't build it. I mean, to me, that's just as likely as building it. I'm probably more in favor of the building, Mayor, than you are, okay? But I was knocked back on my heels When the last number I heard was $20 million, and then 2 months later, it's $35 million. Now, we talked about that at our session downstairs, okay? It just seems to me that we should have had a better idea of budget in mind to know what we could afford to build, because I love the building, but I may love it too much.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, Mr. Sigwart. And I think what we saw was a process opportunity for improvement for all of us as we had represented from the council on the conversations, but we didn't put in place a ability to come back and say, here's where it is and what we're doing. And I think it's a great exercise that we've learned from. Won't happen again.
We won't build another safety building in your lifetime.
And I'm okay with that. But if I make it to 106, baby, I'm coming to that ribbon cutting too. All right, so any other questions or concerns on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, let's try that again. So I have, Susan, I have 4 yeses, 2 noes, 1 abstain. Alderman Gasper and Alderman Tierney, and an abstention from Alderman Sigwart. All right, so that motion passes. Well, that'll move us into item 7A2, consideration and possible action on an agreement with C.D. Smith performing as the construction manager as the constructor of the proposed public safety building, where the basis of payment is the cost of the work plus a fee with guaranteed maximum prices. The issue is, should the city of Port Washington enter into the agreement with C.D. Smith to perform the construction, and the staff recommends that the city enter into agreement with C.D. Smith to perform as the construction manager and constructor for the proposed public safety building, where the basis of payment is the cost of the work fee. Rob?
Okay, and in addition to Bray's staff and our owner's representative, we have Corey Henschel here from C.D. Smith, who has worked diligently with us over the last several days to get the agreement into final form for, again, this is construction manager as constructor. It's a little bit of a different contract, of course, than the typical design bid build delivery. But the agreement is in front of you. We have some revisions that were handed out by our city attorney downstairs that fall into a form that, again, is approved by both the city attorney and our owner's rep, Rick Miller. And the recommendation of the GGF is to approve the contract this evening.
Anything from committee to add?
No, other than to say, we had kind of asked some questions around the fees and how fair those were, and so I think we got some good answers from our owner's rep. So, with that, I would move to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll take a second, throw a quick comment in here that, the analysis by, again, the owner's rep said that we've got the best rates that he's seen out there.
Excellent. I'm assuming, Mr. Miller, you negotiated down cost of bandages, technology, et cetera? Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And then my understanding also is that legal counsel went through thoroughly, added, subtracted, et cetera. So that was in favor of the city of Port Washington. Okay. So I have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Mr. Sigwart?
I have a question about Exhibit A, the guaranteed maximum price. I'm not sure exactly when and how that occurs, but I think that that's kind of something we should know the timing of, because I've never worked on one of these before. I know I'm old and I've never worked on one of these. It's hard to believe, right? But the bottom line is I've never worked directly with a construction manager. And the guaranteed maximum price is very, if I could get it tonight, I'd take it. But I know I can't because we haven't designed it yet, all right? But somewhere in the design process, maybe 80% complete or whatever it is, right?
Sure. This is on? Yep, okay. Great question, great question. The first several months of the journey going forward will be working the design aspects through the normal phases, along with C.D. Smith and Corey's team, making sure that we are designing within or below budget. So the normal phases, we've gone through a conceptual design and program. That was the phase one. We're entering phase two. We'll get into what's called schematic design. And there'll be some cost checks that CD Smith will do at the conclusion of that. The subsequent phase is design development, and that's further developing the design with more detail. CD Smith will do a cost check on that as well. So what we're doing is we're making sure we're designing to cost, not costing to design.
I don't want to interrupt you, but what is our budget? Is it 28.875 million?
The total project budget is 35 million as we've been communicated. The current conceptual estimate has about 80% of that as construction costs. So that puts it at about the 28.750. But that's a conceptual number, and we know that we cannot exceed the 35 million all in. So that's where our collaboration between staff, designers, CD Smith, our input, that we make sure that we stay within that, looking at value engineering like Rob had talked about. We're going to look at ways to bring this thing under, which delights us when we do that collectively, because that just builds trust with everyone. So in answering your question, right now, as we sit here today on the conceptual design, the construction budget is around that 28.75 million. Once we get through the design development, again, we're doing our costing as we go along. And it's not just the construction costs, it's the soft costs and the owner's costs as well that Maura and I will be doing estimates on to make sure that we've got solid budgets on all of that. We get into the construction documents, and that's where the plans are developed to the point that they can be permitted, they can be bid, and they can be built off of. The guaranteed maximum price will be based on the bid results that are based on the construction documents, the plans and specifications. Roughly, that is 6 months from now, roughly. And at that point, CD Smith will bring us all the components of the costs as a result of the bid process on the subcontract level that we will be very, very involved in, overseeing. And that's not just Maura and I on MC Group, that's Rob and all of your staff as well. The guaranteed maximum price is a contract amendment. It's an AIA document that's specific for this purpose, to introduce the guaranteed maximum price. And I would argue that we would not want to execute the GMP tonight because we're not ready. We have a lot of opportunity ahead of us to value engineer, bring added value. And of course, at the point that we have construction documents complete, we're gonna take this to the community and we're gonna promote the project. And we certainly will expect of ourselves that we're going to have some what we call bid buyout, where the bids actually come in less than the estimates. And of course, that will all those savings will be baked into the guaranteed maximum price. So that's the process that we go through. The GMP, guaranteed maximum price, is not only a number, it also includes the schedule. It includes all of the inclusions and clarifications. It includes the enumeration of all the construction documents, plans, and specifications. It's a really, really important document that we need to have a lot of influence on to make sure that it's comprehensive. If it's comprehensive, we have less cost events. Those are change orders. We don't want change orders, except if they're deductive with savings, of course. So it's a very normal and customary, very proven process. Unfortunately, we do have to have a little bit of patience to let this build up. Now, that doesn't mean that you'll see us tonight and the next time you'll see us is in 6 months. We're going to give you reports along the way. When we have these milestone estimates, we're going to bring the results of those to you and show you how we're doing. And we will only take the project to the market when we are ready with the construction documents and we have 100% confidence that we're going to bring this thing within the budget that's been established.
Thanks, Rick. Mr. Sigwart?
One last question. When Bray was hired, okay, we picked them on quality. Turns out that they're a pretty good buy too, okay? My question is, did we tell you we wanted the project to be $35 million, or did we tell you we wanted the project to be $20 million? In other words, we have a budget. My only question is, how did we actually establish it? And I'm sure that you're probably not the right one to answer that.
Yeah, maybe I'll turf that to you guys.
I can,
Yep.
Rob, do you want to take the first swing? Otherwise, I'm happy to help as well.
But before our vendors answer the question, Rob, as staff, can you establish that for us so that?
yeah, and I think this is what Matt will say too, is we started out at $20 million and sat down, I think that was the initial budget that Tony Brown had brought forward, and then sat down with our fire and police and kind of scoped out their needs in addition to, the existing office spaces, and you'll see that in the new building, a lot of the office spaces are the same size. They're just laid out in a better pattern that's more conducive to doing their jobs. Of course, it is a bigger space, a larger garage space, which is, needed for their purposes. And Matt can go more into that. But in any case, Bray was essentially tracking with these needs and telling us, okay, this is looking more like a $22 million building, 24. And we were up to around 28 before C.D. Smith gave us the cost estimate of 35, but that included the soft cost. So I think Bray was giving us costs of construction of the building and wasn't necessarily calculating in all the soft costs, but I won't put words in Matt's mouth. So, that's essentially, we started at 20, but then, realized quickly that to meet the needs of a 50-year building, it was going to be more than that.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I was at that original meeting, and when Mr. Brown had put $20 million out there, there was no science behind the number. It was like, I think if we could do it for around 20, well, the answer was, we can do it for 20. We're going to build smaller than what we have. We're going to have, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how that original number was established. And then obviously when the pieces and the voice of the staff was put into place, we're building space for the future. So does that answer that?
Last question.
This is like going out for a beer with Ned Hewachek. Final.
Who decided on a 50-year life for a building that we're going to borrow money for 20 years? Was that a general consensus of the team, or was that just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I
I
think
would call it consensus.
Yeah, and really, I think the 50-year is that there would be no significant capital costs for 50 years, not that in 50 years a new one would be built. Make sense? Okay. Mr. Terry, did you have any questions? Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And one abstention. All right, that moves us into the next item. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for coming tonight. If you'd like to sit here and listen to our floodplain ordinance, you're more than welcome. Our next agenda item then is ordinance 2024-7, an ordinance repealing and recreating chapter 450 of the city code relating to floodplain zoning. This is a first reading tonight. This is a requirement from the Department of Natural Resources that the Common Council pass a resolution stating the body has reviewed the wastewater utilities compliance maintenance annual report. And as we know, everything excellence starts with compliance.
Mayor, I think you're running two things together.
Oh, I am? Oh, did I skip one? I did. Yeah, thanks. Let me start over. Should the city update ordinance 450 floodplain zoning, the staff recommends adopting 2024-5 to repeal and replace ordinance 450 for the floodplain. The next agenda item will be the one I reread. Roger.
All right. So earlier this year, FEMA basically gave us new floodplain documents and said, if you want your citizens to have affordable flood insurance, you shall adopt these new maps and create an ordinance conforming with federal regulations. DNR called us and said, hey, we're willing to write this ordinance for you. They did. Subsequently, myself and city attorney spent a fair amount of time reformatting the ordinance, not changing language. So I guess we're bringing that to you now. The ordinance is much more comprehensive than our existing ordinance. I'll leave it at that, and I can answer more questions at second reading.
Again, it's a first reading. Any things that came out of committee or other questions from council? Yes.
Do we have the new firm maps available anywhere? I looked online and could only find the 2007 versions.
We do have the new firm maps. They're located in the city planner's office. I'll see what I can do to get these up online, and I'll bring the hard copies to the next meeting so that they can be seen. They are an odd size to try to reproduce for your packets.
Yeah, they usually had PDFs online, but these don't look like they've made it there yet.
Not yet, and to be honest, I haven't checked, but Bob and I discussed that earlier, and I can find them if they're there.
Okay, thank you.
For those of us who took the harder path and have history degrees, do you want to explain what you just talked about for me and anyone else? What is a firm map?
The firm map is the floodplain. The common term is the floodplain map.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So, yeah.
It's okay.
Basically, I'm curious if anything actually changed, if any houses dropped out, if any new ones came on, and I wanted to see that, and the map isn't online yet for whatever reason.
Yeah. And this basically shows the width of a 100-year storm, et cetera, who'd be in that floodplain.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, to answer your question, there's not much change. There's not any discernible. Essentially, they have better topography so they can better define their lines, but I didn't see any properties move in or out of the floodplain versus the old maps.
Okay, yeah, because it was just a couple places around the west, on the west slip, and one or two homes by between Chestnut and the creek along Wisconsin, I believe.
Nothing would bring me greater joy than to see a pair of stereoscopes and a 3D map over there. All right. Any other questions on this? It really wasn't sarcasm. I have a physical geography minor. That's fun stuff. Yes.
Roger, you had highlighted in the memo about the floodplain insurance and the 50%. I guess for me and for our citizens, can you explain what that is and what the change is?
Sure, in current ordinance and past ordinance, if a house in a floodplain was damaged, and if the value of the repairs exceeded 50% of the value of the home, you weren't allowed to make the changes. You had to essentially demo the house. So now we do have flexibility to, if a house is damaged and people want to stay there, that they can make their improvements. But they'll have to make those improvements to certain engineering standards.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing it at our next council meeting. Then we will, Roger, go into the next agenda item, which is Resolution 2024-6, a compliance maintenance annual report for the wastewater utility. It's required by the DNR that the Common Council pass a resolution stating that the body has reviewed the wastewater utility compliance maintenance annual report, CMAR, by June 30th of each year. The staff is recommending approval of Resolution 2024-6. You have the floor.
As most of you know, this is the Wisconsin DNR's measuring stick for how the wastewater utility is doing. And I'm happy to report that out of the 10 categories that we get graded on, that we received A's in all the categories. And since some of you have not probably seen what these categories are in the past, I'm just briefly going to go over what the categories are. The first 5 relate to the things that we're monitoring going out into the lake, the types of pollutants, BOD, TSS, ammonia, and total phosphorus. And the next 5 categories would be biosolids quality and management, staffing and preventative maintenance, operator certification and education, financial management, and the sanitary sewer collection system. And comparing it with the 2022 report, we had a normal rainfall year last year, and we actually did better than in 2022 because we have no sanitary sewer overflow events to report in 2023. We had, I believe, 2 in the previous year. So that is about it. Any questions on the report?
I'm just going to say, I don't have a question, but Dan, I mean, I think this is a cause for celebration for what you do, our dedication per our strategic plan to making sure that we protect our natural resources and, what we put back in the lake is better than what we took out of it. And I just really appreciate that. I mean, it's always nice to get a 4.0 on a report, straight A's like that. But I also think like you just gave another example of a really a good key performance indicator, which was there were no sanitary sewer backups in the entire year of 2023 reported in the city of Port Washington. Like that's pretty phenomenal. And as a homeowner and a lifetime resident, like that's very unique. And, I'd ask the city and the leadership team to make sure that we kind of post a did you know so that our community doesn't just kind of look past the fact that we have extraordinary services in our city under your leadership. So thank you.
Yeah, those events that we reported in 2022, not in 2023, would be like overflows coming out of sewers, not necessarily backup events in basements.
Correct.
So, yeah.
But when those things, when you are driving down the road and you see a sewer cover bubbling, there are basements all in that area with all
Right.
types of issues.
Right.
So there's a correlation there that I've just always kind of noticed. So, and I know that has got to do with a lot of other things, but we appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Sigwart?
Sorry, Ted. A few years ago, I can't remember when we had the lead problem in our sludge. How long ago was that?
It was actually 8 years ago now, 7 years ago.
I mean, that was a great
Hard to believe, actually.
investigation on your part to locate the problem, okay? My question is, based on that happening, do we do any inspections of our manufacturing facilities to see if we could have a similar problem again? It's sort of like a fire inspection chief. Chief goes out on a regular basis, make sure you don't have a bunch of newspapers up against your furnace, okay? Do you do anything like that in your department?
I'm in pretty close contact with most of the industrial folks out there, and I kind of stay in tune with what they're doing. We really haven't had anybody new come into the city recently, but when somebody does, obviously I'm, all about, what are they doing and are they going to be discharging and things like that. So, we watch it fairly close.
Any questions or concerns? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2024-6.
Also move.
Moved by Alderman Sigwart. Is there a second? Second by Alderman. Seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Excellent. If we could just get the Clean Test to move their plant right next to you, constant lavender smell coming from the plant. All right, any public comments or appearances this evening?
So my name's Rich Proctor, 1128 Norwich Trail in Port. I'm here representing myself and my wife. I'm also associated with the Friends of the Port Washington Senior Center, but I'm not speaking for that group. And we've seen, we've had a bit of a crash here with the Capitol suddenly having to go out for the safety center. And that got around to thinking, well, we have some capital needs as well, and hopes and promises that we'll get somewhere, but there's a wide range that could come out of that. And there's also some needs that we really need to do sooner than later. So Port Washington is a fast-growing city with many needs. A recreation center and a senior center have been identified as priorities. The seniors population needs they face significant risk from interact with infectious disease. Seniors need a facility separate from young children. That is like there every day, separate, not dropping by with mom or whatever. Handicap access and regress from all areas of a one-level building and safe parking, which speaks to our current problem. And safety plans for fire evacuation, security, health, threat protection, and management need to be part of this and upgraded from what we have. Seniors, I mean, the big thing is seniors need to socialize together in small groups, participate in modified exercise at a time, and have travel opportunities. And the senior center is a social club. It's not the YMCA. So we got to carefully keep that kind of separate in mind. At the senior center, every member participates in what's going on in running the centers. It's mostly volunteer run. We have 3 or 4 employees. We honor 100 volunteers every year. So that kind of leads us down to a couple questions to ponder here. Can we purchase and renovate a building for seniors and move out of the dangerous old, and we've heard all the rest of the story, senior center that we do have today? It's very fitting with the emphasis of safety in 2024. We should hopefully cap it off with a safe senior center. And can we also look at recreation center, if there's one to be developed, that really have a goal that's going to be fiscally responsible and without much another burden on the taxpayers, which we have had too many of recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? Okay. Then we're going to have a conversation about a motion to convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, i.e. deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public property, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, to wit, devise bargaining strategies and discuss financial and other terms and conditions of potential purchase and development of vacant land in the city of Port Washington known as tax parcel number 161140016.002 and located located north of West Dodge Street, east of North Holden Street, south of West Walter, and west of North Montgomery. If you followed around those cardinal directions, I'm impressed. I would need a motion to adjourn into closed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. This is a voice vote. Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 5, Ward 6, Ward 7, Ward 8. We are now convened into closed session. Council will meet downstairs at 20 after.